Hi, and welcome to the X22 Report Spotlight. Today we have a returning guest, Polny. Bo is a market cycle analyst. He's the creator and owner of Gold2020Forecast.com, and he's here today to give us an update on the economy, on gold, on silver, on the stock market, and I am very happy to have him back on the X22 Report Spotlight. Bo, welcome back to the Spotlight.
Dave, thanks for having me back. Look forward to speaking with you today. Thanks.
Thanks for being here, and I'm very happy that you're here because we are in this incredible time. We have a new president. Things are happening all around the world, and people are talking about how the economy is not doing well right now. And I just wanted to go back in time to when you were on here last, and we talked about gold, we talked about silver, we talked about the market crashing, and your forecast back at that time and what happened and why didn't we see the crash as of yet?
You know, with the crash, I don't think anybody's gotten the crash time down period. It's just the crash has been incredible. The powers that be print money and have the capabilities and the ability to print money. So any cycles I've looked at in prior times, every cycle was basically distorted by extreme money printing, and they continue to prop up the markets. And it's rather incredible how, you know, when someone has the ability to print as much money to infinity, how they can actually hold the market up. And that's really what we've been looking at here. But I think we're coming to an very, very massive and important inflection point in our world. But yeah, the stock market, that is just, you know, it's the biggest fake thing you could be involved in at this point in time. It really is. I truly can't understand why somebody would want to be, why everybody talks about even the stock market anymore, because it's at a point where it's just like everybody who knows what's going on is just over it. You know, they're done. And I can't believe that the market is just being printed to prop up. You know, the last night you have a bomb go off in Manchester, and you wake up in the morning and today the markets are still holding up a little bit. You know, it's incredible what this money printing can do. It truly, truly is, David.
Yeah, we can see that everything is pretty much manipulated. Gold, silver, the stock market, and they're doing it on purpose. They're keeping everything afloat. And when we look at the entire market, we can go back to 2007, 2008, and I'm sure a lot of people saw the movie The Big Short, where these individuals looked at the subprime securities. They saw inside that, wait a minute, these people have many different loans. They're defaulting on the loans, and there's no way that these subprime securities are rated AAA by all these rating agencies. It just can't be true. And they did the same thing. They thought the entire market was going to come down at a certain period of time. Now, they knew it was going to come down. They just didn't know when, and they got the timing wrong each time. But they knew from what they were looking at and all their forecasts that they did, they knew that it was going to come down. And eventually it did. And I think this is what's happening today because we have so much manipulation. We have so much control over the market, so much control over gold and silver that the timing, it is very difficult to get a specific day, a specific time. And I feel that everyone is going through the same thing. But we know from looking at the fundamentals, looking at everything, that everything right now, well, it's all set up to come down. And eventually it will, just like it did back in 2008. And I believe that this time it's going to be much, much worse. What are your predictions right now? I mean, everything that you're looking at, you look at charts, you calculate a lot of different numbers. What are you looking at right now?
To me, the most important thing is the math calculations on the market. And so when one calculation doesn't pan out, just like an example was you mentioned the Big Short. Okay, so the top comes in 2007 on October 31st, and then the markets crash down into the year 2008. So that was the Big Short that you were speaking of. And again, you're right. They did not back down on their position. They knew it was going to happen. They sat there, and everybody, seriously just didn't believe him anymore. The movie was quite interesting because in the very end, he ended up being 100% right. But the whole time until it happened, no one believed it. And that's what's about to happen here. I want to use the analogy of the words, nothing, 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 and then suddenly. And that's how this is going to go down, because the problem that happened in 2008, David, as you know, the derivative bomb blew up, right? And so what they do, they printed more money to prop it up now. So now you're at a quadrillion dollar derivative bubble. And the problems are not gone. They've just printed them, but they have the ability to print monies to basically infinity until it blows up. And that's really how I see this going down. So mathematically, let's to me, again, like I said, the most important thing is math. So let's look at it and apply some biblical time points calculations. So from the year 2000, March 24th, we add 7 years, 7 months, 7 days, and we arrive at October 31st. And that was the exact top of 2007. So then from that 2007 top, the big short, we add 7 years, 7 months, 7 weeks, and we arrive at July 20th of 2015. Well, we call the exact top on that day based on that calculation. And the problem was they printed money again. So what happened? Even though the top held to the exact day, they printed money and it turns around, the markets go higher into the year, 2016 and 2017, where we sit today, right? So let's take another calculation that we add. But remember, biblically, in the Bible, there's a Jubilee year. So you have 49 years and the 50th year, which would be add an additional year. So let's throw another math calculation at this. We're going to go from July 20th of 2015, when we call the top. All right. You add a Jubilee year, so 1 year. You add 7 months, 7 days, 7 hours, and you arrive at March 1 of 2017. Okay. I was on Greg Hunter. But 3 weeks ago, said basically March 1 would have been the top. Now, it was the exact top for the Dow, but the S&P and the NASDAQ continued higher, so they proceeded higher. However, the Dow still holds March 1, 2017 as a final top. So if you now look at the charts, what do you see on the NASDAQ and on the S&P? Okay, so take the daily charts. Whoever, if you're into the stock market, look at the daily charts. What you will notice is a triple top formation. Okay, you will see that the U.S. markets made triple tops, which is, from a charting standpoint, a very, very large problem. And then what happened was, so this was last week, on May 17th, that markets had that flash crash, that sharp drop. I think the Dow dropped 300 points, if you remember that, David.
Yes, I do.
So on that day, that was off the triple top, you had a break. So you had a neckline break, and so the markets dropped straight down 300 points. Now you've had 3 trading days back up. So mathematically, the March 1 top is holding. If you add 21 trading days, which would be 3 times 7 is 21 trading days from March 21, you actually arrive at the exact final high of the NASDAQ and the Dow. So you can actually add a calculation of 7 to bring in the NASDAQ and the S&P top. And then from that third top, which occurred this May, you had that sharp drop that followed. What's supposed to happen from the sharp drop is a bounce back up, which we're experiencing right now. Okay, so if look at the stock market, the Dow, the S&P, all the markets, they are rebounding off the drop. But this is supposed to be a dead cat bounce. And then from this, we're supposed to have a sharp drop. Now, if this occurs, we will witness and begin to experience this by the end of this week, David. Okay, so we're supposed to see if the pattern is true and the calculation's true. We're supposed to have a sharp drop, which we did not get in April. We were looking for the end of April for it to occur. So since it hasn't happened, but that was only a double top in April. Now we got a triple top. So we're supposed to have a sharp reversal right now. And if we get that sharp reversal into this Friday, and this Friday would be, what is this Friday? The 26th. So if we get a sharp reversal into the 26th, and the reversal should start possibly on Thursday, that sharp reversal will then lead to a plunge next week. And so we're supposed to see a sharp plunge. And if the math and the time cycle is correct, it's supposed to happen in the first part of the week. So possibly anywhere between Monday and Wednesday, we should see a severe, sharp drop on the U.S. and the world markets. And I don't know how much it could be, but it could be as much as 10% in one day.
Wow. So let me just throw this out here. So what happens if we make it to Friday and nothing happens at that point?
Well, then the markets can still keep proceeding higher. But until March 1, if March 1 top holds, David, for the Dow, that's the top. Okay. So we're finished. So from March 1, if we had not 21, but it was actually 77, so 77, so 77 trading days. You add it from March 1, you arrive at May 16th, which equates to the exact top on the NASDAQ. So interestingly enough, that be the case, from that very top, we then are looking for a potential drop on the stock market into this Friday. It starts. We should see it now. If we don't see it, that means the markets could proceed higher. But if we do see a sharp drop and the markets rolling over and falling into this Friday, then we should expect a potential collapse or a one-day very, very sharp drop, possibly anywhere between Monday and Wednesday of next week, with Tuesday being a very, very a high day of interest. Now be Tuesday, the 30th of May.
And while this is happening, what happens with gold and silver?
That's the exciting part, actually. Okay. So remember, manipulation has been like rampant in gold and silver because you know what is the I call it, what is the antichrist to the dollar? It's gold and silver, right? It's right. You know, if you have the dollar is the exact opposite to it is gold. So if the gold's going down, the dollar's going up. So the whole game, the game in town is to keep the dollar propped up and get gold low and keep it low. That's been the game in town for 6 years. And so the game's about to end. But if the gold keeps low, the dollar can stay propped up. But the dollar is basically getting to be a point of being finished. So when gold shoots up, and that's what's supposed to happen. So we've all been missing one thing, and we're actually missing, we've all been waiting for one thing, David. And what we're all waiting for? We're all waiting for the day of freedom for gold, right? Freedom from manipulation. That is what everybody in the gold community is waiting for, you know, and the big question is, you know, is it ever going to happen? What is to stop the central banks from printing derivatives to keep the price of gold and silver down? And I truly believe, looking at what I'm looking at with the time calculations here and the patterns, is that we are about to see a wow moment. And I believe this starts next week. I've said, you know, done a few things where I've stated to look to the end of May. Okay. So if the math is right, we should see something really exciting for silver next week and gold, potentially on the Tuesday. That'll be the 30th.
So where do you see silver and gold going?
Well, the first thing is the break of the ability to control. So the first target on silver is $22, and the first target on gold is $1,400. We'll first hit 1,300. They won't be able to hold it at 1,300, and it should quickly go to 1,400. So that's the initial move. Once that happens, expect a sharp reversal. Okay, so be very careful about buying leverage. And even if anybody's doing any leverage positions, be very careful about that, because the last thing in the world that the people who print money want is a high gold, high silver price. So on a price jump of that magnitude, expect a sharp reversal. Okay, but the sharp reversal will be very short-lived. But that will trigger the changes that you and I and everybody in the gold community have been basically waiting for. But it's interesting that it's all lining up biblically. That's the most fascinating part that I truly find, is how it all lines up biblically with biblical calculations. I know people might find it hard to believe, but it is. It's all lining up for some massive changes in prices. When this thing goes, look at what's been happening to the, I don't know if people, if listening to this have been looking at some of the cryptocurrencies. Okay. I know you've been kind of watching them too yourself, David, but
yes,
you see cryptocurrencies moving how much in a day? Some of these, David, 100%, 200%, 500%. Yeah. In a day. There's nothing in the world that we've seen move 500% in a day. Okay, that's just silly. Okay, But that's what these cryptos are doing. Okay. So and everybody's caught in the paradigm that, silver goes up 20 cents a day, gold might go up $20 on a good day, $5 on an average day, and, $5. It's just, they're used to the $5, $10, $20 moves. This is not what's going to happen. Okay. The people in the crypto world are starting to experience what magnitude of movements when they're, 100%, 200% moves. This is what will happen to silver and gold. Shortly after the initial jump, shortly thereafter, what we're supposed to see is loss of control. And then you're going to start to seeing jumps, large. So, and they could be big. I still have, very large price targets. I still have a target for gold for 2000, as hard as it might be to believe. But that is the initial, I guess $2,040 is the initial target that I have for gold in the near term. Will it be, soon? We'll know very shortly. But we're expecting something dramatic to happen here. Will we have to wait till the fall time for that kind of price? Maybe. But I know we will see new all-time highs for gold this year, and we will see new all-time highs for silver this year. It's just a matter of, where the massive explosion will occur. But I do know that the triggering, we were seriously days to just a few days to probably, a few weeks away to seeing some very extreme excitement within the gold community.
Now, when you say moves, are you talking about like $20 moves, $30 moves, or are we going to see something much larger?
They're going to move like the cryptos, like the cryptocurrencies. Okay. Yeah, we're going to see something spectacular. So, once 22 breaks on silver, the next short-term target becomes like $36 or $34 to $36 is the next short-term target. And then when that breaks, we're going straight to 60. So, will it happen soon? I'm not really sure. If we'll see it here, in the next few weeks. I can tell you the probability is really good. So, and it all lines up with some time calculations, that I've really discussed. But more importantly, I want to take if you don't mind, I want to take a minute and talk a little bit about biblical cycles going back. Actually, I think you were asking something earlier about the dollar as well, too.
Yes. If we're going to see moves in gold like this and moves in silver, where is the dollar going to go at this point?
So let's look at the big picture. Okay. So we got to start at year zero. Okay. So Jesus is born. And if you've listened to my videos, you've watched me illustrate how there's a 252. So basically a year, 7 years is 2000, and a biblical calendar year is 360 days. Okay. So 7 years of that basically is 2,520 days. Okay. Which would equate to 7 biblical years. So you take one of those cycles multiplied by 6, and you have the Privileges of Parliament Act, which was basically in 1512. 7 cycles of 252 years is 1764. And lo and behold, the Currency Act. Okay. What is currency? It's paper, right, David? So basically that was when paper was created. And then basically you do 8 cycles of 252 years. So basically a 252 year cycle, and you arrive at 2016. Well, guess what happened in the month of December 2016? The US dollar topped. It was at 103.5 and change. Did a video, said the top of the dollar is here. And at that time point, gold bottomed at $1,124, I believe was a low. 1124 would have been the low. So the US dollar is finished. It completed its cycle, a 252 year cycle in December of 2016. That was a currency cycle, and it's over. Since then, go look at the dollar. Look what it's been doing. It's been falling. Okay. And as long as the dollar keeps falling, guess what's going to keep going up? Gold and silver. But the dollar is on support now. And basically it's supposed to break very, very shortly here. When it breaks, it has some very, pretty sizably low targets. And then that will be the triggering effect for gold and silver, which you are going to then start to explode vertically. So that's the first part of the cycle. If we let's also throw in Jubilee cycles and some prophecy, right? So if you go back to 1517, the Turks take control of Jerusalem. They control that for 8 Jubilees, basically 400 years, into 1917. So the Turks lose Jerusalem in 1917. Okay, so you have a 50-year Jubilee. So from 1917 to 1967, Jerusalem was what's basically in what's called no man's land. All right, or Israel was. 1967, David, what do we have? The 6-Day War, right?
Right.
Okay. The 6-Day War was June 5th, it began, of 1967. 50 years from that time point would take us to June 5th of 2017, in basically 2 weeks.
Okay.
So if gold, will we have a war the first week of June? I don't know. But maybe the war will be a financial war, right? Maybe on that time point will be when we have gold and silver being released. So my point is, something's coming. Something's happening very, very soon and very, very shortly here that is going to release and bring freedom to God's money. And it's right around the corner. So something's about to happen here in the very, very near-term future. The other thing of interest is last September, everybody, including myself, was basically calling for a stock market crash. Remember you talked about this September of 2016. Wow, something's going to happen. It was a Lul 29, Jonathan Cahn's, presentation on Shemitah and
Yes.
judgment, right? So September 15th September 21st through the 15th was at a Lul 29 date, and so a Lul 29, and then guess what happened? Nothing. Right. So right. Shemitah's over. There's gonna be no crash. Nothing's gonna happen. Okay. We all got nailed in that one. We were all wrong. Okay. But so you go back retrospectively and you say, okay, all right, I got it wrong. Now let's do some more math. So why don't we add 7 months, 7 weeks, 7 hours to June 5th. We add that to we add 7 months, 7 weeks, 7 hours to September 15th of 2016. And we arrive at June 5th, 2017. Same calculation, same date, June 5th. And then the war ended on June 11th. So we add same cycle, that would take it to September 21st, the Shemitah date. And we add 7 months, 7 weeks, 7 hours, and we're at June 11th. My point is, we are somewhere at a time point where we can say the words nothing, 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 and then suddenly, just like the 7-Day War was suddenly. My point is, when June hits, we're 50 years post-Jubilee of Israel. So if God's going to do anything, it's coming in June.
So when you say it's coming in June, specifically, what are you saying?
Freedom to gold.
So you're saying this is when gold is going to start moving up. We're going to see these moves in gold and silver.
Ever going to see it, that will be the time point. Because the people, the entities that control gold and silver will never let it go. You understand? They will never let it go.
So as the dollar is falling, we are going to see gold and silver move higher and higher.
Right, but you're going to need a biblical event to make it happen. You're going to need God's help. This is going to be biblical. We need this for gold and silver to be released. This is not going to be released because they will never let it go. My point is, there will be something will happen.
So you're saying some type of an event?
Yes. God, some kind of God, I believe God is going to intervene, and I believe something's going to happen. I believe there's going to be some kind of an event coming in early June that is going to change the world as we know it.
And this could be what, like war? This could be...
It doesn't have to be war. It could be financial war, right? It's the same thing.
So when you say financial war, just to clear it up for everyone, what do you mean by financial war?
Well, think about it, right? What has been controlling the world for 252 years since the Currency Act? Paper.
Correct. So you're saying
Paper ended in December of 2016, last December at 103.5. That was for the dollar. So the only thing it still hasn't crashed is the stock market, and we still haven't seen the event. We haven't seen God's work yet. He hasn't pulled the trigger. But he wasn't. But now looking back at it, he wasn't supposed to until 50 years arrives.
So when this financial event happens and you're saying that the dollar continually decreases, what happens to like people's savings that, people who are holding dollars many people don't hold gold and silver, people who are holding dollars, people who have pensions, people who, work in the everyday paper market. What happens to all of that?
Well, all I can tell you is this, David. It says in the Bible, there's multiple places it discusses to be prepared. Okay, God always says prepared. If you believe in God, you would do one thing: you would hold His money. Okay, even 10% of your investment, if it was invested in physical gold and silver, you'd be fine, because when God does something, they're magnitudes of change. Okay, so if gold multiplied by a factor of silver, when it happens, is going to multiply by a factor of not 7 but 7D. Okay, that's what happens. Gold easy multiplied by a factor of 7 to probably 10. In the short order. So it's when the people that aren't prepared, those are the people who watch the media, who watch the news, who believe it's all real. Okay. Well, I guess there's consequences, right? Would you go sell your gold and silver today, David?
No, absolutely not.
Right. Would I? No. The people that I know that are invested in gold and silver, they've been in this game so long. Would they go sell their gold and silver? No way, unless they actually had to because of financial needs. But no, after you've been in this game for for years already, but basically 6 years of price suppression, to go sell it now, you'd be crazy, so hopefully people are holding on. But this has been a long road. But when it happens, the people who are, in the system, in paper, in the stock market, in the dollar, and, and in bonds, unfortunately, they believe the lie.
Do you think that people who still have the paper money, are they going to lose everything?
Well, I don't think it's going to change overnight like that, Dave, like where it all just, I don't think the markets are not going to go to zero and things like that. They're just going to, there's going to be massive shifts. So I think you'll be able to go buy gold and silver in the future, after the event happens, but I think you'll be paying astronomical prices for it, I think is the problem. You see what I'm saying? So it's not like you won't be able to get it. I just think that it'll be, you'll be waiting in line for it, and you'll be paying ridiculous prices for it when you could have been buying it for dirt cheap right now, for fire sale prices right now. For the past actual 2 years, you could have been buying it for fire sale prices, for these ridiculously low prices. So I don't think. I don't know to tell you how the picture looks on the other end. But I wouldn't be surprised that, I'm sure you could still be able to get gold and silver. I just think the prices will be much, much higher. And it'll be a time period where you may not be able to get them. In the stock market, in the dollar, and it's just, unfortunately, if they've got IRAs and 401ks, I don't know. The people that I talk to are the people, in the gold community. Most of them hopefully are not in the markets anymore. You know what I'm saying? I hope they've listened and they're not in the markets. But a lot of people are, and unfortunately, they're the ones that have not prepared.
So when the dollar continually loses its value, what about like going food shopping, going out to buy products? Are we going to see inflation?
Well, absolutely, because basically if a gold doubles, that's inflation. Yes. But if you're holding gold, it doesn't matter if a good chunk portion of your portfolio, if you invested in gold and silver goes up by a factor of 70, right? Gold goes up by a factor of 7 or 10. In a near order, you won't really care about inflation because you'll be able to handle it, with your silver. It's, you can sell some of your silver off to get whatever you want, basically. So if you're invested in precious metals, you're not going to feel the effects of inflation. But my God, my goodness, if people are don't have access and presently are not holding any precious metals, they're really not protecting themselves for any massive inflation move.
So will the dollar cease to exist? I mean, will it end being the reserve currency?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have a down cycle for the dollar for the next 7 years since the top. Okay, so I've got two. Since the top, you can do 33% for the first correction and then another 33% drop a second time. So that's what you should expect on the dollar over the next, say 7 years. It could be sooner, but at least when I ran the Fibonacci calculations into the future, I have a 33% drop from 103.5, and then another 33% drop following that drop. But the first drop's going to have like about a year pause, and then it's probably a good 6 month to a year pause, and then another 33% devaluation.
Let me just bring in cryptocurrencies into this discussion. Now, we have gold and silver, but now we also have cryptocurrencies where the central bank, they're in Ripple, and they have some skin in the game there where that's, I think, the banking community where they're controlling Ripple. But what about Bitcoin and the rest where it's completely decentralized? They have no control over. Where do you think the cryptocurrencies are going to go?
To the moon. Anybody who's not involved in cryptocurrencies right now is really missing out. They're going to, because it's so easy, I believe their numbers were going to move faster than even gold and silver in the near term. Maybe not a long term, but in the near term, they probably will. But there's so many cryptocurrencies that are out there, and as we discussed, some of them are moving, hundreds of percent, 30% 50%, 100% changes, 200% changes in a single day. So they're not going to stop going up. And if you got into the ground floor of some of these cryptocurrencies, my goodness, it's your life is, like we're buying, I've been in this for a while, and I've watched it happen, but I've positioned myself, and I've it's been really exciting to see this happen. But see, the cryptocurrencies are a market that they cannot print a derivative contract to bring the price down. In other words, they can't control it. So the cryptocurrency moves that you're seeing right now are simply a precursor to what's about to happen when they lose control of gold and silver. But because they cannot print Bitcoin or Ripple, because they can't print it, they can't take the price down to zero, or they can't bring the price down. So they're in essence losing control they've already pretty much, lost control of the crypto market. If you've looked at, how much these markets are moving, and the cryptos are nothing but a precursor for gold and silver. It's just that they're the first thing to move, telling you what's about to happen to gold and silver. But absolutely, Bitcoin is going to have massive moves. Ripple, there's a few others that are going to have very, very big moves into the future. And I think that's how people are going to be transacting over large distances, because, you can't, if you want to buy something out of China, it's not like you can send them a gold coin real easy. And the cryptocurrencies are just a press of a button, and you've completed your transaction.
So from all of this, when I know we discussed the market coming down, gold moving up, when do you see things really starting to shift? Many people that look at cycles say this fall. Are you seeing the same thing where we're going to see big changes in the fall? Isn't that what you said before, right?
Well, yeah. Well, first off, I need to see what, and we need to see, but I personally am looking forward to see what happens here May into June. So that's going to be very, very interesting to see how this plays out with relation to the markets. But I'm very excited to see what happens there. I'm first looking for possibly somewhere in the vicinity of a 10% drop. Secondly, I'm then looking for a minimum of around a 30% drop. We could see that either this summer in the U.S. here, possibly the month of July. And if not, then we could be looking at later this fall in October. But that drop in fall could be into much lower numbers if we've already fallen between now and then, if that makes sense. So it's important to see what happens now, see then what happens in the summer, and then we can make if we talk later, we can see what could happen in the fall time of this year. There's three potential time points for drops, and again, the markets are they're the most manipulated thing in the world, so they're the hardest to forecast into the future, but I can tell you, at least off the calculations that I've seen so far, I'm interested to see extremely, because I'm not in the markets, so I'm not less interested in those, but I'm extremely interested in gold, silver, and the cryptocurrencies. But at least in the markets, I am very interested to see what happens here this month into June, and then in July. And then we can see, where we're at that time point. But right now, it's definitely a big, massive point of interest right here, right now.
For those people who haven't done anything, where they've just listened to this and they haven't purchased any gold or silver, they haven't purchased any crypto, they still are in the paper markets, what would be your suggestion? What should they do? I mean, in your opinion, what at this point in time, where do you think they should take some of their cash and where should they put it?
I don't want to give, obviously, financial advice, but I can tell you personally what I'm doing, and how I would look at it, right? Well, like as I mentioned earlier, right? Biblical events, and I believe we're approaching one here. A move in silver should be a 70% move in the near term. So this year into next year, possibly that type of a move. So if you've got 10% of your assets invested in something like that, I think you don't have a whole lot to stress about. Because regardless of what happens to the stock market, if something moves up 70 times a factor of 70, I think you'll be okay. Gold, same thing too. Gold is just going to move less than silver. If you believe gold is an investment, then silver is a better way to go, just because the ratio is at 70-1, and the in-ground ratio is 10-1. So what that says is, over time, the price will approximate 10-1. So therefore, if gold is going up, silver is accelerating its way up to catch up to the 10-1 ratio. So if you personally believe you might want to own a little gold, I think, in my opinion, I'm much more, way heavier into silver, because I know the move will be that much more dramatic and impressive relative to that of gold. Cryptocurrencies, it's a big learning curve to get in on these crypto. It's not easy to just go ahead. It's like you just can't go to the store and buy a cryptocurrency. You have to figure out how to get your money. So talk to some people, do some homework. Probably watch some YouTube videos. I know, how do I get involved in cryptocurrencies? But I think the most stable one over time is going to be Bitcoin. But there's other ones that you can get involved in as well too. Just Bitcoin it's like gold; it moves slower, and the other ones are like silver, and they move a lot quicker. But still, those are the two. At least you're diversified. I think if you're only in paper, I think you're setting yourself up for a lot of misery in the future.
Bo, listen, I really appreciate you being on the X22 Report Spotlight. Once again, how can people see your work?
David, I've not posted a lot of stuff recently. because there's not much to say. I've said everything I need to say. It's all said. We're just waiting. So I've got a few videos, the little older videos, but I think the most recent stuff that there is to listen to is this interview, David. This is the most recent. This is, I think people just need to if they they can go to my website. There's some videos that are older, but honestly, they just need to do something to be prepared, because I think what's coming is going to be pretty, life changing for a lot of people. But you don't need to be a victim. You can actually prosper, and it could be okay. So it's just, I think it's just a matter of just kind of waking up a little bit. And I'm sure a lot of people listening have woken up as to what's going on around them. But maybe I'm sure most of the population still watches the news media and believes it's all real. So maybe you might want to take a little leap of faith and realize that maybe there is something. So maybe there is some truth to this.
Bo, thank you very much for being on the Spotlight. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Nice to speak with you. God bless.